particularly bad in the north of the county. Desmond is certainly making his mark across the northwest, and Lancaster right through to Carnforth. Bad weather report is there.
It started in a way on the Friday evening around about 11 o'clock at night.
My first weekend as duty group manager during my acting up period. I went into Friday evening looking at the weather, and we had a yellow warning where no action was required in Lancashire. The next thing I knew about it was a phone call at 6:30 from control that a conference call was going to take place immediately. So we kind of jumped straight in with both feet and had this multi-agency meeting.
We were turned out to a elderly lady that was sort of distraught with the rain coming through her porch into the house. It wasn't flooding as such, but it was the wind driving the rain in down at this end. And that sort of was the start of the wet stuff from about 8 o'clock in the morning. In fact, we even brought her rug from the porch back here to dry out because she was sort of so upset at the situation in her house.
I was off call at 12 o'clock, but the call came in just after 11:30. From then on, it was going from job to job to job.
We had 2 officers in North West Fire Control, and we also brought in extra officers to have the eyes on the ground actually at the flooding.
I was sat at home with my 1.5-year-old boy Saturday morning. Blackberry rang, made the mistake of answering it. It's like, are you free to come back on duty? Said I could, and within minutes my pager had gone off. I was being sent to the substation north of Lancaster on Caden Road.
Initially we were called to Lancaster, to Cable Street in Lancaster, to the substation.
First briefing was basically, this is priority number 1 in Lancashire. You know, national critical infrastructure, we do not lose this substation.
Obviously last Saturday was quite busy for everybody. We got sent from Darwin to Lancaster standby, which was a bit of a shock.
The later went off at 5:15 and I was literally just leaving the station. So I thought, oh, better go back. Thinking, no, I'll be the first one there, obviously. Got the message. Standby Lancaster.
Well, I came on duty at 6 o'clock and was immediately deployed to Lancaster.
The first when I got there, there was a fair bit of water around, but it was sort of halfway up your boots. So we wandered out through the water to have a look at the situation. Didn't look too bad at that point. Within about an hour, next time we had a look, it was coming over the top of our boots, and so from then on for the next 8 or 9 hours, that was several of us with like wet feet.
And because we were an SRT crew, I think they were very keen to sort of release the crews to do other incidents really, so we were sort of hopping from one incident to another up there at that stage.
And there was an old chap, I think he was 74, trapped upstairs in his house. All the downstairs was flooded. His house was called the Boathouse, for quite a good reason, because it was obviously a nice place to live in the summer.
It was actually in the water when we got there, wasn't it?
Yeah, on the side of the river, but the river had moved.
When we were on the way back from Morecambe, and I'm not that familiar with that area, but I remember looking at the river and thinking, wow, that's big.
It's surprising how strong that water was between the last property and going across his garden. It was horrible.
We had to aggressive swim to get over, didn't we?
Yeah.
While we were at that pumping out incident, we were mobilised to a pregnant lady stuck in the water, didn't we? Land Rover.
Yeah.
She said a water broke.
She did, yeah.
10 hours
before. Yeah.
I was just looking at the fire engine weighing it up, thinking, could we deliver a baby in the back of there? And
luckily we managed to get him to dry land, and he had somewhere where he could go, because a lot of people were getting rescued from their properties but they'd nowhere else to go, but he had some relations.
it was almost like your face caused that ambulance to arrive, wasn't it, when it dropped, when I asked you how you felt about delivering a baby.
The guys were working tirelessly, but ultimately we were beaten by the flood water and it just overtoppled all the flood defences, and there was a real sort of sinking feeling at that point as we knew we'd been beaten.
we got redirected to an incident in Hornby. And it was 3 pumps, the self, Hornby was retained and Conf was retained. And it was water coming down the hillside, overfilled the pond area, and then that was coming into the residential areas. And when we got there, they were good foot high.
On arrival, we jumped out, we got the pump to work, we set up all our equipment. And this guy come running across the bridge with his daughter, and he just asked if we'd had anything to drink or eat that day, and we hadn't even had time to refuel the appliance, because when we were trying to refuel it, we got turned out.
Every time we put 4 appliances up to the north of the county, they got consumed into responding to floods. So, I mean, our priorities at that stage were the crew's welfare. We had crews that were wet, tired, responding from one incident to another. So we had to get things in place, you know, for their welfare, for food, refreshments. So we're looking at having a command unit set up at Lancaster at Fortin Services.
Within 5 minutes he came back, trotted over the bridge. I watched him come over the bridge with his daughter. And amazingly, he had a tray full of cakes, tray full of sandwiches, biscuits, hot drinks, tea, coffee, full of horse lads, and he didn't have to do that. I mean, his house was next to be breached, I think. If the riverbank had breached the other side, his house was on that side of the river, and it would have been breached. And I actually asked him, what have you done to shore your house up? He says, nothing. He says, material things, really. He says, the material things don't bother me. As long as life risk, there's no life risk is managed, then he says, if I lose my house, I lose my house. I've still got my life. And I thought, yeah.
I was actually forward command at Fortin Services in Lancaster, which they had no power. I was basically assisting the appliances that were based at Lancaster Services, but because we were there with fire engines and we had our blue lights on, we were a focal point for everybody, so they were all pulling up and then coming to us to ask for help because they couldn't find anybody else. All the services were shut, the garages were shut, they had no power to pump fuel, so they were just parking up and coming to us because they didn't have any other focal point to go to.
A lot of the time we see the fire engines responding, we see the fire crews responding. What we've got to understand is, behind the scenes there was a heck of a lot of work going on to make sure that the crews could respond in a more effective and efficient manner.
As the day went on and darkness fell, it was really difficult driving conditions, going from job to job to job, through all these floods, stopping. Would we get the appliance through, but then knowing that someone on the other side of that particular road, that flood, needed our assistance and we needed to get there.
We turned out to a person's reported incident in Morecambe, which was a strange incident. And when we got there, there was a derelict garage with half a roof on, and there was a chap in there screaming that he was on fire. So there was half a door on, so I put my head through the door and had to shout at him to get his attention and ask him what was wrong. And he said he was on fire, to which I repeated, "You're not on fire." And this chap was convinced he was on fire. So I suspected that I was dealing with somebody that had mental health issues.
We had a Spanish couple who were on holiday and they had a hotel booked in Windermere. They didn't know whether they could get anywhere. So they'd stopped to try and get internet access at the services, but obviously there was no power.
So I managed to convince him that he wasn't on fire and asked him to come out the garage where it was safer. To which he replied he couldn't, because if he stood off the wooden platform that he was on, he would be electrocuted.
I attended large property, 5-bedroom house, stone built, probably turn of last century. Family were in attendance. They called it in, saying that there was a flooding of about 6 inches within the basement. The basement had a culvert flowing beneath it, and in normal circumstances the submersible pump within the basement pumped the water away. Because Lancaster suffered a major electrical power loss, the basement had flooded because the pump wasn't working.
I ended up having to go into the garage and take his hand and convince him that by touching him, if he was going to get electrocuted, I'd now be being electrocuted because I was stood on the concrete. That took a little convincing, but ultimately I did get there with him eventually, and I did lead him out to safety. And he was just a homeless chap. He said he was happy. He had friends, because I was concerned for his welfare, and he said he had a place to go where it would be warm and dry, and then he just literally disappeared.
There was no way to get a LPP in there or hard suction from a major pump. So I requested a pumping place to turn up, and I had the idea of using the hose reel to pump the water out of the basement and obviously out of the property and down the hill. It initially started to work, but very poorly.
We were using our satellite uplink on the mobile fire station to basically go onto like the BBC websites and trying to find out which roads were closed. We went onto the Highways Agency website a lot, looking at whichever road they thought they needed to go on. We were using the internet access to find out whether those roads had been declared open or shut.
The lad, I think he was Eastern European, couldn't really find out because he didn't speak much English, but he'd been at the service station for 6 hours, and because his bus that was taking him up to Barrow in Furness had booted him out because the roads were shut going up to the lakes. So he'd been there for 6 hours and he came knocking on the door.
The attendant appliance was from Colne, leading firefighter from Colne, and he had the brainwave of using the hose reel tubing, but instead of sucking the water out, he would use it to siphon it out. So we left the open end down the grid within the basement. The other end was connected to the fire engine. He drove down the hill about 20 metres, disconnected it, and the level of the fire engine was below the level of the basement, and the water just siphoned out. Perfect, absolutely brilliant idea.
The crew manager came up to me and asked me if I'd just go outside and have a look at something with him. And he took me to the side door of Lancaster fire station and said, what do you think of the water? And I've got to be honest, I thought, it's miles away from the station, it's not a problem. But just stood there looking at it, I thought. So we went to the front and had a look at the front, and the water, it was just like an empty riverbed with the water just starting to come down. It was like something out of the film. It was unreal.
There were sort of big plastic containers floating down the road and all sorts of stuff about, and just a lot of traffic around as well. And surprisingly, amazingly, cars just still kept driving around despite the conditions. And
by this point, people were starting to get a little bit nervous because there wasn't any other option for them. The time frame was slowing down.
I managed to get his documents from him, find out where he was going. He was actually going up to Barrow to meet his boss because he was working on a ship.
What I wanted to do, I looked at what would have the most impact in terms of cost and impact to the station thereafter. And in the watch room is the turnout cabinet, and if that goes down, then it impacts massively on the station. So one of the lads come up with the idea to get some gym boxes out of the gym, lift it up and then slide it underneath.
I managed to get in touch with his boss, and he'd arranged for him to stop at a hotel because he'd found out that he'd obviously not made it up there because the bus had kicked them all out at the services.
And then I got that, you better come and have a look at this. I'm thinking, what now? And the water was literally just about to come in. So I had no choice then but to abort and evacuate the station because we were going to become trapped ourselves.
I put in the GPS coordinates of the hotel and it was actually on the services, so right next to where we were. So I went for a walk with him and a couple of torches, this lad, to find the hotel to see if there was still somebody there. When we got there, it was all candlelit in reception, but they'd actually shut.
We couldn't go right because we could see a car just down the road and the water was up to the bonnet by this time.
The amount of abandoned cars was just unbelievable. It was really eerie.
There was pillars on the pavement, and it was just over halfway up then. And the problem with water is you can't see underneath it, so you don't know what's there. Is the road still there? Has the manholes lifted?
It was just one of them situations where everybody just got stuck in and did the best out of what we had.
We fetched him back to the command unit, give him some food and a brew, and got him on there. Then we tried to sort a taxi out for him.
We had a gentleman turn up who was on his way home from work, so that must have been 5:30.
I got back onto his boss and eventually managed to persuade his boss to come and pick him up because he had nowhere to go. It looked like he was going to be spending the night on the command unit, to be honest.
His last text message from his wife was, "You need to bring baby milk home." And then he hadn't been able to contact her. He couldn't get to Morecambe through Lancaster because it was flooded. And as he was in the command unit with us, there was 3 cars that had a crash at the Carnforth junction. So we were then back onto the MDT looking at the mapping system to find out which junction he had to go to get up and then come back down to get to Morecambe on the coast road. But he also said, well, I need to go shopping because we've no power at home. They had 4 kids, one was a newborn, hence the reason for the baby milk.
The highlights of the evening was 3 gentlemen who were trapped in their factory on Caterton Road in Lancaster, and they were quite content actually to stay there for the night, but we were a bit concerned about the water levels getting any higher.
So I wrote him a little list of, these are the emergency things you're going to need tonight. You need to get a bottle of milk, you need to get some UHT milk, you need some water, you need all these things that are just going to get you through the night.
So we brought them 3 gentlemen out on the sled. Had quite a bit of humour with them guys because they were Preston fans and they just beat Burnley that day, so our crew from down here in East Lancashire got a bit of stick.
But he was going to have to go down the M6 to Booth and then back up I think he was going up 3 junctions to get onto the coast road to get back to Morecambe.
It was one decision after another. Felt like it was on tests. It just, it was like the scenario where you got a drill and you have a car crash and it's in the water and a plane's landed on top of it, deal with it. It's just not real. But then, we set up some really bizarre training sessions sometimes where everything's gone wrong, which in reality probably would never happen. But that's exactly what it felt like.
Literally, as we were leaving Lancaster, after helping with boat and sorting everything out, we're going back, and we're there, like to come in Lancaster for fuel, and I'm like, don't go fast, keep in the green. Get back to the service station. And I don't know how we got back there because fuel we had, it was just literally below red. I thought we were not going to get there, but we got there.
It was 2 extremes of a working day for us. We were doing a lot of the public engagement stuff and trying to manage forward command and trying to manage welfare of firefighters, deal with Opcom, deal with North West Fire Control, and then the police were coming in saying, have you seen this? No.
One good thing that came out of the floods was the sort of community spirit that it brought out in the both residential built-up areas and within the more rural areas.
We put something like 180 to 200 man-hours into it over a 7-day period. Started off very early Sunday morning at Forton, which is the holding point for all the pumps, police vehicles and ambulance vehicles, on the outskirts of the badly flooded area in the Lancaster area. We then moved into the middle of Lancaster and we were working with the police, with mountain rescue and the fire service as guys were going around checking out areas that had been inundated.
So yeah, the crew's got a phone call about the old lady across the road. She had a bleeping smoke alarm on it. Hard of hearing alarm. So the crews were busy with all the flooding stuff, so we went across in the morning. Magda sorted a beeping hard of hearing alarm out. We also said he was safe from one bag, and then we left after that, didn't we?
Yeah.
Because we had so many other care homes to do. And then when the power went out again, in the probably about 4 o'clock, we thought, well, we better go and just check up on her, make sure she's all right, sort of thing. And she was in a bit of a, she was a bit flustered, she was a bit distressed, so she'd not eaten either. We asked her if she'd eaten and stuff, so power was still on over in the fire station, so we just decided to give her a bit more lighting, so we got under the torch and also just make her something warm to eat, and then took it back over to her and made sure she was alright.
We attended St Michael's on the Monday, which we did the main body of work there.
If you actually look behind me, here we've got 2 full breaches of the actual berm where the berm collapsed. That then caused the actual river water to actually backfill the surrounding farmland and all the geographical area behind us.
What we did notice on that stretch of land. There's probably 8 or 9 properties that we needed to ascertain if there was anybody in, and did they need anything, any resources that potentially we could have given them, or even if they needed extricating from the property. We were also tasked with delivering medication on that day, which was vitally important, certainly for one gentleman that was desperate for his medication. And again, it took us maybe an hour or so walking through this water. It was extremely hard, tough day. We managed to get it through, but it drove us really, because we're seeing the devastation on these houses, the families, how it's affected them. It drove us and it motivated us to do more and as much as we could do.
We've pumped all these fields out, and what we're doing now at the moment is working towards rectifying that breach by filling it with 1-ton sandbags and then packed in clay on top of it. That's being done in conjunction with the military and with the Environment Agency. From there on, we're going to deploy high volume pumps from Fire and Rescue Services and the United Utilities to move the standing water that's occupying approximately 3 square miles across all the fields around where we are.
Hello, my name's Firefighter Dobson. I'm stationed at Rockstall with a support pump for the high volume pump, and we're here today in St Michael on the wire, pumping out the flood water after the River Brock broke its banks. Behind me you can see the hydro sub from the high volume pump unit, which is connected to a submersible pump which is in the flood water at the moment, and it should be delivering around about 7,000 litres of water a minute back into the River Wyre, which is around about 300 or 400 metres away.
Feeling, and my crew as well, an immense sense of pride in what we're doing, helping the community. Their lives have been devastated, their properties, and it's great pride that we can come here and throughout Lancashire, Lancaster as well as St Michael's here, that we can help them people in their hour of need. What I'm impressed with as well, that all the partner agencies are coming together, the 999 responders, Base Search and Rescue, the utilities, Environment Agency, the police, all working together so that the recovery process can start.